Say what? We are muted.
okay. Hello? Hello? Can anybody hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
That's better. I felt like I was talking to myself.
We are here.
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, sorry. I had to change my internet source. I don't know what's going on, but I'm glad to be back. Are we all on now?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
here.
Okay, you're welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you all to this webinar, which is the fifth in our series on the Protein Challenge campaign. Just to quickly give an overview, this webinar is part of a series of execution activities for a protein pool campaign that we're currently prosecuting in Nigeria. It's tagged Protein Challenge. And essentially what the campaign is to draw awareness of all key stakeholders to the scourge of protein deficiency in Nigeria, to encourage them to take action at different levels and in whatever way they can to mitigate the problem, while at the same time positioning soybeans as the most cost-effective solution to the challenge of protein deficiency. So I welcome you all once again. I'm not going to waste much of your time. I've given a bit of a background as to why we're here. So I'll ask the moderator to proceed straight away with her introductory remarks. Over to you, Madam Moderator. Over to you. I've handed over.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
I can hear
Hello?
you. Yes. Go on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. Welcome to today's session of our Protein Challenge webinar series. Protein Challenge is a hashtag for the Nigerian Protein Awareness Campaign. It is a media campaign that seeks to create awareness about protein deficiency in Nigeria. This awareness campaign is managed by the Media Craft Associates, They are a leading PRO firm in Lagos, Nigeria. Hello.
Go on.
My name is Chef Anwuli Ogbonnaya. I'm a chef instructor and the CEO of Party Kitchen. Party Kitchen is a catering and event management company based in Lagos. I welcome you all once again. Hello. By joining this webinar, participants will be able to appreciate the status, causes, and consequences of protein deficiency in Nigeria. They'll be able to recognize the need for proper nutrition and nutrients provided by the 5 main classes of food. They will also be able to identify strategies to help in alleviating protein deficiency for individuals, families, and the nation at large, amongst others. Before we proceed to meet with our panelists for today's session, let me quickly run through some of the things we'll be having on this session today. Today we'll have a keynote address from our key speaker, Professor Hereta Nkechi Eno Obong. We'll also have some other members of the panelists that will join us in the discourse today. We'll have Dr. Bimbo Oyedukong. When he's on, I'll take his biography. All right, now let me go to Prof. Hello, Prof. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, Prof.
Are you hearing me?
Yes,
okay,
I can hear you. Good afternoon. Okay. Today on our discourse, we have the privilege to have with us Professor Hereta Nkechi Eno Obong as our keynote speaker. Professor Nkechi Eno Obong is a professor of human nutrition and the coordinator Human Nutrition and Dietetics Program, Department of Biochemistry, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, University of Calabar, Cross River State, Nigeria. She is currently the coordinator of the African Network of Food Data Systems, AfroFoods. She is a nutritionist and a member and a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Nutrition Society of Nigeria, and one-time editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Journal of Nutritional Sciences. She's also a fellow of the Nigerian Academy of Science, NAS. Wow, what a loaded CV. Prof, we're happy to have you here as I hand over to you to give us your keynote address.
Okay. Thank you, Anwuli, for that introduction. I want to thank welcome all the participants at this webinar, and also to thank the management of Media Craft Associates for inviting me to participate in today's program. I'm happy to be here, and I hope that at the end of the day, we'll all be happy that we have come here.
You're welcome.
So we already know the theme for the program we have today is protein deficiency, bridging the knowledge gap. So the content of my presentation is that I'll just go a brief introduction on what food is, and then talk about protein nutrition, because if you are talking about knowledge gap, we need to know what we are talking. We'll talk about the status of protein deficiency. In Nigeria. Are you hearing me, please? Are you hearing me?
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, protein intake. We talk about the protein intake in Nigeria and why the protein deficiency is still lingering, and also some of the strategies to curtail protein deficiency, and then conclude. So generally, I will just start by telling us that all of us, we know that food is a basic need for every man, and we eat food. But food means so many things to so many people. At times it may be just be to fill up the stomach, to satisfy hunger and so on, but that's not what food is all about. Food is supposed to provide what the body needs, you know, and so whatever we eat and is capable of giving us those things that the body needs, then we can call that thing food. It can be in any state, whether it's liquid, it's solid, or semi-solid, but as long as it contains one or two of the nutrients that the body requires, we refer to those things as food. And so food gives us nutrients, and nutrients are those substances that the body actually requires. And we know that you know, from studies that we have more than 50 nutrients, you know, that the body needs. And these nutrients, in order to help us organize and also understand them, they have been classified into 6 major groups. And we have water, we have protein, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, and vitamins. But I know we all know that while we are here today, we are talking about protein. But food has to contain everything. And so protein comes from the word, you know, proteose or proteose, and then it means very important, primary, or taking the first place. So it just tells us that what we are talking about is an essential component of our food. I'm not going to go into a lot of chemistry, but basically it's good for us to know that these proteins are made up of some elements like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and then nitrogen. And what distinguishes protein from the other macronutrients like carbohydrate and fat is that while carbohydrate and fat are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they don't contain nitrogen. So this nitrogen is an essential component of food, and it is through protein that we get nitrogen into the body. So that tells you that how important it is, and that without protein, life may not even exist. And in 1816, a scientist tried to feed dogs with just olive oil and sugar, which is devoid of protein. And within a few weeks, the dogs died because that nitrogen-containing compound is not there, and that is protein. So protein, you know, they are the building blocks of our tissue. Just as you build a house, if you don't have the blocks to hold the house, then there is no house. So, and they are made up of what we call amino acids. These carbohydrates, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen are combined in such a way to have what we call amino acids. And the amino acids are joined by peptide bonds to form proteins. Just like in carbohydrates, you have sugars that are joined together to form your carbohydrates. In fact, you have fatty acids that join together to form fats. So in proteins, you have amino acids, and there are about 20 of them. These 20 amino acids, from studies, we have found out that 9 of them are called essential amino acids, while the others, 11, are called non-essential. But that does not, an amino acid is non-essential does not mean the body does not need it. It simply tells you that the body can, with other things that come through our food, can synthesize these non-essential ones. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in the food you are eating, but the essential ones must be in the food, because if they are not in the food you are eating, then even the non-essential ones cannot be produced. And then other things that the body needs cannot also be produced. And that is, you know, as science continues to evolve, before we only had these 2 classes, essential and non-essential. Now we also have a class we call conditionally or acquired indispensable amino acids, meaning that some non-essential amino acids can automatically become essential due to certain conditions in the body. It could be, you know, immature organs in the body that, you know, immature organs not producing the essential amino acids, and not producing those non-essential amino acids, so they become unavailable, and then they become essential at that particular time. So we have 3 classes, but basically essential, non-essential, and conditionally non-essential. The next slide, please. Are you hearing me? So another thing about protein again is that when we talk of protein, what is important about protein is the amino acid they contain. So, and that is what determines the quality of the protein. So we have different qualities for protein. You have what we call complete proteins and incomplete proteins. The complete proteins are where we talk about high quality protein. And the high quality proteins, you get them from animal sources, animal source foods. While the incomplete proteins are the ones that do not contain, they lack some of the essential amino acids. So we call them incomplete. And then the complete ones have all the essential amino acids in approximate amount that the body requires. Next slide, please. Can we go on? So, and then here we also, there's another term we use, limiting amino acids. When an essential amino acid is limiting, means that if the quantity is so low in a particular food, then it is the limiting amino acid. So we have food groups. You know, we have several food groups that we eat from. We eat from starchy staples, we eat from cereals, legumes, nuts and seeds, vegetables, animal sources, and so on. We are not talking about income when we talk of different types, like the plant proteins. The plant proteins are limited in certain amino acids. For example, cereals, things like rice, maize, wheat, millet, and so on, oats, these are cereals. So what they don't have enough lysine, mainly lysine is what they are limiting. That is, they don't have enough lysine in them, but they are high in methionine and cysteine. And then when you look at the legumes like beans, you know, pigeon pea, you know, they are limiting in methionine and cysteine, but they are high in lysine. You can look, if you look at it, it means that if you actually combine these two, you will make up for the weaknesses of each of the groups. So another thing that determines protein quality is the digestibility. You can eat enough protein, but if it is not digested, it's of no use to the body. It is only the amino acid or the protein that is digested into its component amino acid that can contribute to the amino acid pool and be useful to the body. So, and the digestibility depends on a lot of factors. It could be whether it's plant or animal, and we know, you know, that animal proteins are more digestible. It could be the state of the protein. That is, if it is a raw protein and a cooked protein, the cooked one may digest better. That's why at least we cook our foods. Then at times, some people don't have the certain enzymes to digest certain proteins. That is why some people, when they eat things like egg or fish, they start having allergic responses, simply because the fish protein is not completely digested, and the particles become like foreign bodies, and the body starts looking at them as enemies, and then there is this allergic reaction. Then plant foods also contain what we call anti-nutritional factors or phytates, tannins, and so on, oxalates. These things are things that can form complexes with protein and make the protein unavailable for digestion. And so if the protein food, the plant protein has all those things, then it means it cannot be available to the body. And then again, we look at the functions of protein. Function, basically in our elementary nutrition, we just say it is used for growth, repairs, and maintenance. But the proteins have specific function. And it is only when you understand the specific functions of this protein that you will know the effect they have on human beings, like for movement, or the collagen we find in the ligaments that connect, you know, different parts of the body are all protein in nature. So if the protein is not there, you won't have collagen, you know, those ligaments or collagen to form. If the movements, our moving from one place to the other, or using our hands, or even the movements of the organs in the digestive the organs in the body, all need, you know, actin, myosin, and the rest for contraction. Muscle contraction is what leads to movement. And then transport of nutrients. Here we will see that when there is no protein in the body, it triggers other deficiencies also, because proteins help to transport materials from one part of the body to the other. So when you don't have enough protein to do that work, something like vitamin A deficiency, it may not be that we are not eating enough vitamin A, but if protein is deficient, then it will lead to vitamin A deficiency. Then all the enzymes in the body, all the hormones in the body are all proteinous in nature. The defense mechanisms, that is the immunoglobulins, the antibodies that, you know, protect us against diseases, they are all protein in nature. So if there is no protein, these antibodies will not be produced, and the body becomes susceptible to infection. So can you go to the next slide, please? So, and then body fluid also proteins help, to regulate the fluid balance in the body. This is why, like in protein deficiency, where we have children with kwashiorkor, where there is edema, it is because of low protein, and because of low protein, there's osmosis, which makes water from the blood to come out into the tissues, and you have edema and so on. And then energy. Protein is one of the energy-yielding nutrients in the body. And so it's good for us, especially when we are dieting. Some people will say, okay, I eat all proteins. But if you eat a lot of protein, the body will take the protein it needs, the rest it will convert to carbohydrate or to use to produce energy. Or it will use excess. If you have enough carbohydrates in the body, the excess protein, it will break down and also store it as fatty acids. So in all, you have not actually done much. So we must always strike a balance. Next slide, please. Then the sources of protein, like I said, all the animal proteins come from animal sources: eggs, fish, milk, and so on, snails and larvae, and even edible insects. Then the plant ones, because that is our issue now, the plant proteins. We have legumes, we have cereals, we have nuts and seeds. Sorry, you will see that there's a mix-up because the leguminous, I put legumes and leguminous oil seeds. So I should have transferred soybean and groundnut and maybe the oilbean seed to that column. But if in nutrition, the pulses, or the ones we actually call legumes, are the ones that don't have a lot of fat. Then the leguminous oil seeds are the ones that have fat, like soybean, groundnuts, and the oilbean seed. So, but that's not the issue. But you can get protein from these sources and also get them from cereals. You can get them from carbohydrates, but they are low. You can get them from vegetables, fresh leafy vegetables, but you can get more from dry vegetables than you can get from fresh vegetables. So when we talk of, we don't put fresh vegetables as major sources, but if you dry them, they can also become good sources of protein. Next slide, please. Then let's just look at some of the things that distinguish a plant and an animal protein. In terms of content, you could see that both animal and plant proteins have high, I just gave ranges. I didn't want to go specific, but ranges of the amount. At times, you can even get more protein from a plant source than from an animal source, depending on the amount of the animal protein you are taking or the amount of plant protein you are taking. But I want us to look at minerals. We see that the minerals that you have in animals are more readily absorbed, like calcium, iron, and zinc. The body can absorb them better. But the ones that are in plants are not easily absorbed. Why? Because of what I talked, the anti-nutritional factors like phytates and the tannins and oxalates that can bind them. Then when it comes to B vitamins, both plants and animals can give you B vitamins, but you have more from animal sources. Then when it comes to fiber, these are important, things to know. The plant sources are excellent sources of fiber. They are also excellent sources of what we call phytochemicals. They are not nutrients, but they've been shown to be very, to promote health. And then when you come to fatty acids, plant sources are also better because they contain the monounsaturated fatty acids and the polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are healthier than the saturated fatty acids and cholesterol. Then when it comes to digestibility, the animal proteins are easily digested than the plant proteins. But again, the disadvantages of the plant proteins can be made up for if you process them. Then you can reduce some of those things that will hinder their digestibility. So in terms of protein need, everybody needs protein. We need it for every life cycle, whether whether you are a man, woman, baby, or so. Everybody needs protein because if you don't need it for growth, you need it for repairs or you need it for maintenance. So the amount will also vary according to your age, sex, and your physiological state. And when we talk of physiological state, we mean like pregnant and lactating women who need it for the development of the fetus, production of milk. So they need extra amount of proteins. And then for we also, for adults, normal adults, it's recommended that about 0.8 grams for a kilo. Let's say even if it's 1 gram a day per kilogram body weight, meaning that if you are about 60 kilograms, you need about 60 grams of protein in a day. And then it's also important for children, infants and children, adolescents, because this is the period where they are growing and there's development. And if you don't have enough protein at this stage, you know, it will affect their mental and cognitive development and the health of the children. Next slide. This one just shows you what a child needs, you know, per kilo, gram, you know, the gram of protein they need in a day. It's not body weight, it's what they need in a day. You know, that is just the recommendation. Let's go to the next slide, please. Then protein deficiency, which is what we are talking about, is the inadequate intake of protein, both in terms of quantity and quality. Somebody may take enough quantity, but if the quality is not enough, then it will be a problem. And protein deficiency occurs for all age groups, not just everybody is prone to protein deficiency, but we know that it is more among the vulnerable groups. So protein deficiency will manifest in different forms as protein energy malnutrition, which we see in children that are, you know, we are all familiar with kwashiorkor, and we are all familiar with marasmus. But these days we measure protein deficiency using, you know, something like stunting and wasting, you know, acute malnutrition or severe malnutrition. And protein deficiency is very, very devastating. And so many studies in Nigeria have shown, even the latest 2018 NDHS report shows that 37% of Nigerians are stunted, of children below 5 years are stunted. That is a sign of protein deficiency. And also 7% are wasted, even though there is a decrease in that, you know, because in 2013 it was 18, now we have 7%, but still this 7% is not acceptable. Next slide. Then we also, and like I said earlier, protein deficiency can also manifest as, you know, it can lead to anemia. It can lead to micronutrient deficiencies that we have been talking about, iron, zinc, copper, vitamin A, B6 deficiency. Because if protein is not there, these nutrients cannot be well metabolized, and that can lead to deficiency, you know, also. And then we also, we know the prevalence of all the micronutrient deficiencies. So these are all consequences of protein deficiency. And in the elderly, it is also a problem because it can also lead to skeletal muscle function and wasting, a lot of wasting you find in the elderly. So the protein intake of Nigerians, unfortunately, we don't have recent studies and quantitative studies that cut across the whole nation to tell us what quantity of protein people are eating and so on. But from studies that have been done earlier on, we know that most studies have shown that we have energy and protein deficiency. And then we also know, but there was also a review that was done recently, you know, this 2020, trying to tell us that the protein deficiency, protein intake of Nigerians seem to be adequate, except for adolescent girls, pregnant and lactating women. But I know that there was also a recent study that was done by the Japanese International Corporation in 2017 at the Federal Capital Territory that shows that these children that have been exempted in the review, you know, are also not taking enough. So we have studies that are scattered, giving different views, but definitely protein deficiency is still very prevalent in our society among these, because if not, there's no reason why we should be having 37% rate of stunting and 7% rate of wasting. Next slide, please. Then, why is the protein deficiency lingering? We know that malnutrition is has many causes. It is not just food. The food is important, but there are other things. We have what we call the immediate causes, the underlying causes, and the basic causes. So if you look at the UNICEF conceptual framework, it shows you the things that lead to malnutrition. Why malnutrition is still lingering is that we have not been able to deal with all these multifactorial causes of malnutrition, you know. And what specifically, we can start with poor infant feeding practices. Like our exclusive breastfeeding rate is below 30%, you know. Our complementary foods are not adequate. we don't utilize the available food resources that we have in society, in our environment. And then we don't, uptake of technology is not easy. I remember in those days when we started with soya bean when I was at Nsukka, I know we used to train women on how to use soya bean to prepare different types of meal. But the technology you teach them ends there, because when you leave, they don't have the capacity to do what they want to do. Either they don't have the money to buy the soya bean, or they don't have millers to mill the soya bean to do what we have told them to do. So uptake of and adoption of technology is also a very serious problem. Again, our low dietary diversity, our diets are very monotonous. Our children, we give them pap. If you go to the villages, pap, 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 thank God for breast milk. And then our staple, the staple we eat are also monotonous. Then poverty, is a serious problem. If a mother does not have money, the woman may not be able to buy those nutritious foods from the market to feed her child. And also knowledge, nutrition education is important. Knowing how to combine what is available in order to make the best out of it. Many mothers, many parents cannot do that. Then household food security, household food security, you don't have enough food in the house. Then it becomes difficult to make sure that everybody gets exactly what he or she needs for normal living. Then failure and attention to, for us to look at what do we have we all come from different cultures. What are those things that we have advantage of? We develop them and use them, because when you keep thinking of something that is foreign to you, it's not easy to adopt and it's not easy to use. Then with things like sanitation and hygiene, these are the things that also lead to malnutrition, because when there is disease, when a child is sick, the child will lack appetite, and if he lacks appetite, he's vomiting and so on. The child will also suffer from protein deficiency. So hygiene is important, water is important. Then political instability and insecurity. You cannot produce, even like people who are displaced from where they are, or if there's an upheaval, you cannot plant food. You don't even have work. You don't have money, to buy the food. If you look at what is happening in our society now, you will see that there's a lot of things happening. And people, even like during this COVID period, how many people were able to really go to the farm and do serious work to produce food? All these things eventually affect, at the short term and long term, our protein intake. And then what are the various options? What are we supposed to do? Like I said, nutrition is it is caused by so many factors. Malnutrition, whether it's protein or nutrition in general, they are caused by so many factors. And then for you to deal with it, you also have to look at the different sectors. What can they do? So if we start with the unborn child, that is where we talk of adequate nutrition in the first 1,000 days. That means that the mother of the child, adequate nutrition for mothers and adolescents must be taken care of. Then we must promote and support exclusive breastfeeding, because this is the foundation that the child needs. And then when the child has finished with that, you must make sure that the complementary food, and this is the place where a food like soya bean starts playing its own part. In our complementary food, we make sure that our complementary foods, are adequate, so that they can provide the amount of protein that the children need. But I want to make a statement that just plant protein is not enough for a complementary food. For plant proteins will not be enough. We must have a way of including animal source foods. There are cheap animal source foods that we can add, and that will lead to dietary diversification, making sure that infants and children have at least 4 food groups in their meals. And we have different, for children, we have about 8 or 7 food groups, apart from milk, breast milk. You must give them, their food should contain 4 from these food groups. And when you do it, then you will see that somehow you must include some plant proteins, which will augment what you have in the plant animal protein to augment what you have in the plant protein. And then we have to promote the high quality complementary foods or foods like this soya bean we are talking about, and other indigenous legumes. You know, I just want to mention that there are other indigenous, but the advantage of soya bean is that its production is more, and so it can go high. But we also have to start producing our own indigenous legume in that quantity that you can also use them to develop foods, whether they are complementary food or food for other people, for the other sectors of the population. If I like something like this African yam bean, during my PhD, I had done the analysis of soya bean amino acid profile and that of African yam bean. And there wasn't any difference between the two of them. But this is an indigenous legume that we have also forgotten. So the time has come for us to also look inward, you know, because for some cultures may prefer to eat that one. Some may prefer to eat soya bean. But all of them put together will help us to solve our problem. Next slide. There are other, I have said production, and this production at low cost, like I said, uptake of technology is very difficult. So for women in the rural area, when you teach them what to do, at times they don't do them because they don't have the capacity, they don't have the wherewithal to do them. But if the small and medium scale industries can produce these things in packs and that can be affordable, then you will see that these women will buy them because they become convenient for them. They battle with time, they battle with lack of, you know, the appropriate technology or to do the processing that soya bean would demand. So if the small and medium scale industries will do them in affordable packs that they can easily pick and use to feed their children, that would be very good. And then another thing is protein complementation. Something like rice and beans is a good combination. Like when I was showing you limiting amino acids, I said the cereals are limiting in lysine, while the legumes have a lot of lysine. Whereas the cereals have a lot of methionine and cysteine, which are sulfur-containing amino acids, whereas the legumes don't have. So when you put the two of them, rice is a cereal, beans is a legume. When you combine the two of them adequately, you don't even need meat, especially for the adult population. It will give them a good amount of protein, and the essential amino acid of each other complements and makes the food a good one. The only exception where you are combining is like if you combine milk with legume, because the sulfur amino acid in milk, it will not be enough to counteract the low quantity in the legume. So protein complementation, which we call mutual supplementation, is another way of trying to help us. If we don't have money to buy meat, we can at least mix our legume and our cereals appropriately and get good protein quality. Then increase production, even at household level. We need to have increased production of food, even at the household, not just large-scale agriculture. Backyard gardens, you can have vegetables, you can have fruits, you can have legumes, all sorts of things planted at your backyard, because everything contributes. You know, the vegetables will contribute. If they are starting stable, whatever you have in your garden, they all contribute little of protein. Not that they may not be the major sources, but they contribute. Fruits, vegetables, staples like yam, cassava, all of them contribute. But we need to have foods, you know, because each of them enhance each other to give us a balanced, adequate diet. Nutrition education is something we must do to teach people the benefits of soya bean, how it is used, how it is prepared, how it's stored. We need, and other legumes we need to teach. Then empowering women, like I said, a rural woman who does not have money, there's a limit to what she can do and what she can give to her child, or even the family. If the family is not, you know, is poor, there is a limit. So empowerment is very important. Making women to have something to do to earn little money, that will help. Governance is important. You know, we need good leaders, policy makers, those who will make the policies to be implemented, those who will put money into, invest money in nutrition, you know, those who will also make sure that we have a stable society, you know, where people can be comfortable to do what they are supposed to do and everybody will live in harmony. Then apart from this, most of the things I have talked about, they have to do with food-based approaches, that is using food. But you can also, and there are preventive methods. If we can use these things, we prevent the protein deficiency. But when protein deficiency is there, then we can also look at other strategies, that is the treatment options. And we know about all these therapeutic foods, but some of them you do at the village level, at the community level, and so on. But that is treatment. What we want to do, we want to stop the deficiency. We don't want people to even go into deficiency in the first place. So we need to use the food that we have. Next slide. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, I would say that prevention of malnutrition is very important. Malnutrition, it can come in any form, but because we are talking about protein, food-based approaches are very, very cost-effective. And that's why use of soya bean and other traditional foods that we have will be very appropriate. And we have, in this country, we have spent a lot of money on treatments. We should make sure, we should actually be focusing on how to prevent so that we don't spend so much on how to treat. Prevention is better than cure. So like what we are doing today, we need knowledge. We need to know. We need to know what these foods are, where they are available, their sources, how we can make use of them, and also the capacity to make use of them, to apply the knowledge we acquire. Because if you acquire knowledge and you cannot apply it, you cannot use it, it's of no use as not having it at all. Bridging of gap is very important, and that is what we are doing today. And I think it is the right direction, trying to sensitize people, make them to know what we are supposed to do. And also, to conclude everything, I still say we should make use of our food resources. Nigeria has been endowed naturally. We have so much. If you go to other countries, you will see that we have variety, but the variety we have, we are not making use of them. But if we start making use of what we have, I think it will also go a long way in helping us solve this problem. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much, Prof. That was indeed very impactful. I have a whole lot of things taken down now. I don't know where to start from right now. You really did an in-depth speaking on that. And I think while you were talking, I had to, in your introduction, when you said food means many things to different people, as a chef, I started thinking that maybe this could be another part of food business I should go into, because besides just cooking and having delicious food, the nutritional contents of those foods have to be put in consideration also. And then as a chef, when we think protein, basically we think meat, poultry, eggs, and all that. So from this lecture now, I think we as chefs should go back to the drawing board and begin to figure out how to use the plant-based protein, how to find out how to integrate it into our meals to have a complete meal. I'll have some questions for you, but I'll come back to you later. Let us welcome Dr. Ifeoma Akeredolu. Hello, Doc. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Anwuli.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, good afternoon, Anwuli. I'm here.
Good afternoon, Doc. Yes, good afternoon.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good afternoon, Doc. How are you today?
I'm good.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Prof has, yes, I can see. Prof has given us so much to think about and so much to talk about. Before you go in to take your session, let me give you a bio so we can meet you.
Okay.
We have Dr. Ifeoma Augustina Akeredolu, PhD. She's the Chief Lecturer, Department of Nutrition and Dietetics, Yaba Tech, with close to 2 decades of experience. She is a nutritionist and member of Nutrition Society of Nigeria, International Federation of Home Economics, and Society for Nutrition Education and Behavior, USA. Her research interests cover micronutrients, nutrition education, maternal and child nutrition. She is published in several local and international academic research journals. Doc, I know it's going to be a wonderful session with you. With all this that we have read, let's give you some time to talk to us now. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Amuli. And thank you very much, Prof.
You're on.
Yeah, my Oga has spoken and you want me to speak. I will just speak on a little aspect. This is my Oga now. Thank you very much, Prof. You have spoken everything. But because they said I should speak, so I will just take an aspect.
Yeah.
When Prof was, and good afternoon, everybody. When Prof was speaking about ways of options that we have to close the gap, she mentioned towards the end about food-based approaches, and that's the only one I'm going to talk about. If we want to follow food-based approaches, that's all the things she talked about. Most of the things she talked about are food-based approaches. Then I want to approach it from this area. That, for instance, if we have these are food-based dietary guidelines for Nigeria, we have the one that was developed in year 2001 and reviewed or reprinted in 2006. Of the opinion that if we care to follow our food-based dietary guidelines, to some extent, we can close this gap. And so this afternoon, I'll be talking about I'll be speaking to the policymakers and to ourselves. That are food-based dietary guidelines that we have is already outdated. Outdated in the sense that we have some emerging issues, some emerging foods, some foods that were not included there. And there are some people who have the opinion that, I think they are working on the new ones anyway. There are people who have the opinion that it should become a regional thing. As I was going through trying to prepare for this webinar, I spoke with some of my colleagues and I was asking, now, if you want to like bridge this gap, what would you do? Or what kinds of foods would you suggest and things like that? And I got diverse of opinions. But basically speaking, if everybody, she talked so many things about things that are that have made the gap to be wide. Looked at behavioral, socioeconomic, political, and what have you. I'm looking at political aspects somehow. If we develop our food-based dietary guidelines according to maybe ethnicity, let's not say ethnicity, regionally, let it not just be an open thing that, oh, anybody can, I mean, people will not be able to understand. If we develop it regionally, the kinds of foods we have in the Eastern region, there are some snacks there that are protein rich because we are talking about protein today. If you look at it in the northern part, there are some foods that are protein rich that we in the South, we do not even know about or we don't have. If you talk about the one in the Southwest and what have you. The reason I'm talking about using the food-based dietary guidelines is that would help policymakers to know the kind of direction where they will put their energy, towards policies and interventions that would promote intake of protein in this country. Why do we need why do we follow the food-based dietary guidelines? It would help, for instance, for us to know the foods that we are supposed to take. The layman would know, oh, these are the things that are available in my community that I can take to meet my protein needs. For instance, one area that I noticed that even those of us that have the knowledge do not take cognizance of is planning of our meals. When we look at it from the area of the approach of food-based diet, using our food-based dietary guidelines, of course, it's not just only protein it's talking about other foods that we have to put in our meals. It will help the individual to plan the meals properly, to make adequate use of the foods in the locality, to plan nourishing meals. A lot of times people just want to eat. Oh, it's available, let me just eat it. Oh, this is what I think. Even for those of us who are the middle class or high class or what have you, even for the low class, if we learn how to plan our meals and we are taught, I'm talking about giving proper nutrition education now, that these are the foods that we have in the locality, and these are the ones that give you proteins, these are the ones that give you this and that. You know, it helps us as individuals, as family members, to like be able to mitigate this protein deficiencies to some extent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ifoma. Very brief, but very insightful. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello? Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, that was brief, but very insightful. Yes, I'm with you. And very insightful also. You talk about the food manual, the food basic daily manual. I'll come back to you for a question on that, because this manual, I don't think is readily available to people in the rural areas. So we need to, since we're talking about bridging the gap, we need to know how people in the rural areas can have access to manuals like this, or to the available manual that we have, so as to connect to what the availability of the products they have in their locality, to be able to have complete meal. Thank you very much for your presentation. Prof. Hello, can I have Prof on?
Me?
Hello, Prof.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, Prof. In the course of your lecture, you talked about, yes, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
In the course of your lecture, you talked about the conditional indispensable. Okay, you talked about the conditional indispensable amino acids. I would like you to please buttress more on that, because basically we only know about the 22 essentials, the 9 essentials, and the non-essentials. But today we have heard about the conditional indispensable amino acids. Maybe you throw more light on that so that we'll hear more from you about that.
Okay. Amino acid, for example, the amino acids phenylalanine and methionine, amino acids that are metabolized or catabolized in the, they are metabolized in the liver. And these two amino acids, if you go through the slide I have given, you will see that you can produce the tyrosine and cysteine. Tyrosine and cysteine are non-essential, but because you can get them from phenylalanine or methionine. But if the liver is damaged, like I told you, these two essential amino acids, if you have a damaged liver, like liver cirrhosis, you will notice that it will not be possible again to have tyrosine and cysteine, because phenylalanine cannot be metabolized. Do you understand? So because of the problem of the liver, these two amino acids are no more produced. Remember, the non-essential amino acids can be produced in the body using the essential amino acids that is coming from your food, and even some of the other nitrogen or substrates within the body. But when these essential amino acids can no longer perform the function they are supposed to perform because of liver damage, then tyrosine and cysteine will not be available. So in that condition, it can also happen with premature infants when the organs are immature. This some of the non-essential amino acids become essential because the body cannot synthesize them. The non-essentials are produced by the body itself, but where there are situations where they cannot be produced, then it will make them to become essential. So that is when they become conditionally essential. Previously, they were non-essential, but because of the physiological state of the body, because of what is happening within the body, they become essential. Does it make sense?
Yes, Prof, go ahead.
Are you with me?
Yes, Prof, go ahead.
So I've given you two types of, I said like in premature infants, in people with damaged liver or liver cirrhosis, some non-essential amino acid can become conditionally essential. And there are also some other diseases where phenylalanine cannot be metabolized in the body, and it will also lead to the accumulation of phenylalanine and can also affect, even damage a child's, affect brain development of the child, or even cause birth defects in mothers. So like, phenylketonuria, that is KAP disease. So some non-essential amino acids also become essential. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much. We have Dr. Bimbo Oyeduku on our panelist. Dr. Bimbo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good afternoon, Amuli.
Good afternoon, Doc. How are you today?
Very fine.
I'll quickly run through your biography. Dr. Bimbo Oyeduku, healthcare management consultant with over 12 years of experience in managed care, medical diagnosis, e-health, health advocacy, and management consultancy. He's currently the managing partner and executive director, business development at Q+ Health Services. Since its inception, the company has been able to establish itself as a credible and effective provider of health services for the corporate market. The company's services are broadly categorized into 4 groups: medical services, wellness, management consultancy, and e-health. Doc, you're welcome to this session.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome to this session. All right, can we have your take for 5 minutes, please?
Okay, thank you, Jeff. As I was looking through the topic for this webinar and trying to put together what my thoughts would be, one of the first things that came to mind is, well, I looked at it under several of my approaches or my involvement in healthcare. So to start with, I'm a dentist by training, and now I'm a health management consultant. So starting from dentistry, looking at, by the way, I enjoyed Prof. Eniobong's presentation immensely because it gave a very, very good summary and also quite a bit of detail on manifestation of protein malnutrition, causes, and many other things. Now, one of the key things from the approach of dentistry is to realize that the dentist may also be one of the first people to notice protein malnutrition in the clinical setting. And that is because you have certain manifestations that you see in the dental clinic that are clear-cut indications of protein malnutrition. So for instance, you have something called acute necrotizing ulcerative gingivitis, or ANOG. And you see that, which ties into what we've heard from Prof, you see that in children who have been malnourished, they don't have access to protein in their food. You can also see it in adults, especially if they're immunocompromised. So maybe HIV or some other immunocompromising situations have brought that about. But that is a condition that can actually lead to the loss of all the teeth. And it can also progress in some cases. It can be the precursor to something called cancrum oris or noma, which can actually lead to, some of us may have seen this in traffic. You see some people with a hole in the cheek, standing, usually begging in traffic, and you can see their teeth through the hole in the cheek. And it starts as actually a deficiency in protein. So that's just to point out that there is such a wide range of manifestations of protein deficiency in the human body. And it's extremely important that everybody gets enough protein. Like Prof said, protein basically is building blocks of life. So if you lack proteins, then there's a serious problem. Now, talking about my company's ventures into e-health, health insurance, education, I am brought to the understanding or the realization that it's extremely important that we get the information about adequate nutrition, protein and otherwise, to Nigerians in all the possible media that we can use, whether social media, electronic media, face-to-face communication for rural areas is essential, because what people don't know actually ends up hurting them. So it's very, very important that this kind of advocacy is taken beyond this kind of forum where you already have a lot of people who know, and take it to where people can appreciate it and realize that this actually applies to me. Because you can actually be averagely well-to-do and yet have serious issues with your nutrition. So, and then maybe finally, I'll say that I'll tie that to health insurance, which I'm very passionate about. Nigeria currently has an unknown number of its population covered by health insurance. Sometimes we say 3%, sometimes we say 5%, but the number is too small, whatever it is. And the more people who have access to healthcare, the more that they can come into contact with medical professionals, from community health education workers all the way up to consultant physicians, who can notice the symptoms of protein malnutrition, who can advise them, and who can get them on the pathway to health. So I think I'll stop there for my first take in this webinar.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bimbo. We'll come back to you to discuss on the symptoms of protein deficiency. But before we go on, Prof, we have a question for Prof from one of our audience. Ibrahim Abdul has a question for Prof. Prof, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, there's a question from, all right, Prof. There's a question from Ibrahim Abdul, and it says, is there a minimum daily quantity of protein that must be consumed by an average person? I check the question again. Is there a minimum daily quantity of protein that must be consumed by an individual?
Yes, there is. You know, we have the WHO, FAO, UNU recommendations for protein intake, daily protein intake. We don't have anyone that is specific to Nigeria, but FAO, WHO, usually they cater for developing countries like us, where we don't do a lot of research to know what is appropriate for our own people. But we have this recommendation, which we use. You know, some people also use the recommended dietary allowance for the US, for the UK, but what is appropriate for us in the developing world is the FAO, WHO, and UNU recommendation. And according to the 2007 recommendation, I have given it somehow in my presentation, but I didn't go into much detail. But I said that something like 1 gram of protein per kilogram body weight a day is like, okay, 0.8. I just took one because it said one because it's very close to 0.8 grams. So 0.8 gram, you know, a safe level of about 0.8 grams per kilogram body weight. So if you are, say, 60 kilograms, if you put yourself on the scale and you weigh about 60 kilograms, it means that if you multiply the 0.8 by 60, it will give you the amount of protein you need for the day. If it is 1, depending on your physical activity level, it can be graded for minimum, for those minimum, moderate and intense physical activity. So as you go further, for those who are involved in intense physical activity, the amount that is needed per kilogram body weight increases, you know. So there is supposed to be minimum for children under 5 years of age. They need about 10 grams per day, 10 to 20 grams per day, depending on their age. I also gave a table showing the requirement, and it also varies according to sex, whether it's a boy or a girl.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mr. Ibrahim Abdul, I hope you got your question answered. And by the end of this session, I know you know your weight. So you go and run the calculation and know how much protein you will require in a day. Thank you very much, Prof. We have a question here for Dr. Augustina. Hello.
Hi.
Okay, here. The question we have for you today is, in your opinion, has protein deficiency lingered in Nigeria?
Has it lingered or what?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me? You didn't get that. You didn't get that.
I got it.
Did you get my question? All right,
So,
go ahead, please.
Yeah. In my opinion, why has protein deficiency lingered in Nigeria?
Yes.
Prof mentioned a lot of things, but I'm going to take the two basic things: ignorance and poverty. My Bible tells me in Hosea 4:6 that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. When people have knowledge on the types of foods that are rich in protein, we can say that the problem is half solved. What information do people have about protein-rich foods? Where do they get their information from? Do they get their information from medical practitioners like medical doctors, nurses, pharmacists? Do they get their information from experts in nutrition, experts in dietetics? You see, like my Oga used to say that everybody in Nigeria is a nutritionist. Because of the social media and internet now, everywhere you go, you get information. But there are several ways we can get good information. Information is power. Knowledge is power. When you get knowledge, like I said, the problem is almost half solved. But that is not the only problem. For instance, for us for you to get good information, like I've mentioned, you can get from experts in nutrition, you can get from institutions, you can get from associations like Nutrition Society of Nigeria. We have a Twitter handle, we have a Facebook account, we have an IG account. When you go there, you can ask questions and your questions can be answered. Because I hear people sometimes you're even trying to talk to them about where to get what and how to do this, and they begin to argue with you. They will tell you, I saw it on this and all that. So if you get good information, you can get the problem half solved. Another problem is poverty. We cannot run away from it. Prof mentioned it as well, that the cost of production of protein foods, protein-rich foods, both at the individual level, household level, and at the national level, they are really high. all over the world, the price of, particularly that of animal protein. But like she mentioned, there are ways we can mix two protein sources of plant protein and get what? Almost complete protein. And like she also mentioned too, we are going to come to that later, but another thing is traditionally, our local diets are mainly composed of starchy foods. If you look at international standard, when they are naming food, they will first of all name the protein. Beef stroganoff, very chef.
That's right.
Egg what and all that. When we want to name our own, amala,
Yeah.
eba, and this, so
definitely.
psychologically speaking, we believe that, oh, you need, that is what you really need. In as much as where we are getting our carbohydrates should be more. But at the same time, let us give the same attention to the amount of protein that we are supposed to take in. Is it as children? Is it as adults and all that? Furthermore, sometimes I ask my colleagues and they say it still happens because some of them are on the field. Culturally, children are given small amounts of protein, if they are even given at all, because they are children. Say, no, this one might, if you give him so much, or don't eat your egg before you finish your rice, or what have you. When by the time they finish the rice, they're already full. So, and also women too. Most times they are the ones to serve the food, but what happens? Oh, they get the bottom of the pot. His guy is the male. That thing is shifting actually, but there has to be a mindset shift in these cultural ways so that we can address protein deficiency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Keridolu. That was quite interesting, especially the part that has to do with our mentality. I don't know how we're going to get the people at the grassroots level to begin to change the way they think about protein, especially when it comes to the children. We have a whole lot to do. I'll have some more questions for you on that, but let's take this one to Dr. Yedukun. Dr. Yedukun, please, we have a question for you. Hello, Doc.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yes, you talked about the symptoms of protein deficiency. We would like you to elaborate more on that. What are the core symptoms of protein deficiency? And then the symptoms, are they visual, are they physical, are they things we can see, or those ones are things, I don't know how, there's a question here I'm trying to call it to suit you, but let's take it like this. What are the core symptoms of protein deficiency?
Okay, so thank you for the question. So core symptoms of protein deficiency are they are as a result of failures in what protein actually does in the body. I'm going to refer again to Prof's presentation. So for instance, there's a protein called albumin, which is in our blood, and it helps to maintain something called oncotic pressure. That's just a big way of saying that it keeps water in the bloodstream. And Prof referred to it when she was talking about the failure. If you don't have enough albumin in the body, then you have fluids being trapped in the tissues of the body, which is a classic symptom you have of what we all know as kwashiorkor. When you see pictures or videos of children in war-torn areas, you see the classical picture of the muscles are very lean, muscles are wasted, they look skeletal, and then they have very distended abdomens. So because you have a lot of fluid gathering in a place like the abdominal region. So that's one thing, which is you have accumulation of fluid in the body, which is edema. Then you have fatty liver. That one is not easy to see, but it does happen and it is dangerous. In fact, it can lead to death because of the failure of production of something called lipoproteins, you have accumulation of fat in the liver, which begins to spoil the functioning of the liver. Then you have very visible and very noticeable, you have problems with the skin, problems with the hair, problem with the nails. So you have the skin beginning to look reddish, patchy, and flaky. You have hair thinning and even falling off. and then looking very light. And, the ladies here, you will bear me out when women talk about body of their hair. So you see someone whose hair is really, really thin and it doesn't look substantial at all. Those are all, because all those things are made up of protein. So those are all visible symptoms of protein deficiency. Then I mentioned it earlier, you have muscle wasting, where the body begins to digest muscle in order to produce energy when you have states of general malnutrition. And then you have an increased likelihood of bone fractures because proteins form, for instance, collagen is like the structure, the superstructure that helps to form and mold our bones. So when you have a deficiency in protein, the bones are not properly formed, they are brittle, they can break easily. And for children, you especially see it in stunted growth, which is a clear indication of protein deficiency. And you also have reduced immunity, where people are more likely to fall sick. Opportunistic infections can attack them. Whatever the age of the person, if the person is deficient in protein, immunity will be low. And you also have poorer mental function, which is a problem, especially for children of school age. If they are not getting enough protein, you find out that their ability to learn is reduced. And this is not sorted out in time. The child may find it difficult to catch up with that deficiency, even for the rest of his or her life. So these are what you can call core symptoms of protein deficiency or protein malnutrition.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bimbo. We'll come back to you now. We'll have another question for you. We're running out of time. Let's quickly take this one. What strategies can be employed to bridge the knowledge gaps? I know you have talked about some other things, but this one, I'm referring to the people in the rural areas. How can we help them, or how can this awareness be taken down to them to bridge the knowledge gap? Prof.
Okay, you are specific with the rural area, or
yes,
generally?
The rural areas, Prof. No,
Okay.
rural areas.
Okay. Well, for the rural areas, we have talked about the media. The media, many people in the rural area, they listen to radio. Most of them have televisions now. Some of them have, smartphones and so on. So we can use any level, any of the media strategies to reach them. Another way of reaching them is to have extension workers. If we have, like when Dr. Akeredolu was talking about, getting the right people to give the right message. If we have nutrition extensionists or home economics extension agents, or at times some agric, because at times you have more of agric extension agents than you have the home economics and nutrition extension agents. If these people, because they are the ones that reach out to rural households, but I think in Nigeria, we need to, emphasize the need for extension workers, because these extension workers can carry the message to the rural community, because they work with the rural community, the grassroots. And not just that, the information they have to carry need to be translated in such a way that, it won't be like this high technical thing we are trying to talk here. The message has to be brought down to their level, and probably to the local language. In Nigeria, we have so many languages, but at least there are some basic ones you can use. Have messages translated. These our messages translated into the local languages: Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, Efik, Do, and so on. If we translate the messages, somebody who cannot read English at least will be able to understand English, will be able to understand his or her own mother tongue. And the message has to be simple. So those of us in the research area, we could do our researches, but the extension agents will now take the information and bring them down. And then it also requires, producing materials, BBC materials, that is behavior change communication materials that can be, you can distribute to this and written in these reader-friendly languages and so on to rural communities. So extension workers are very important. Also, the health professionals that work at the health facilities in the communities will also have their own part to play. We can also make use of CBOs, that is community-based organizations that are there. You can reach out to these people. You can reach out to village groups, through their organization. So there are many ways of reaching the rural people, and then even the rural people, their children go to school. So we have primary schools, we have secondary schools, even in the rural community. Nutrition education must be inculcated into the primary school curriculum, that of the secondary school, so that even the children, because children have a way of also teaching their parents. If they are taught good nutrition in school or good dietary habits, they come home and tell their mother, oh, look at what my teacher said. And they will even insist that their mother does what the teacher has said. I remember when I was at Osuka, my children, I don't cook bambara granite, but they will go, they have eaten it in school, they've been intermingled with their friends. When they come, they say, Mama, why don't you cook this? And they force me, and now it's a family food. So children can, in the school can bring some of the information to their parents, even in the rural community. So education is very important. Women groups, like I say, health facility workers, extension agents, and also bringing materials that we can use to translate these high technical languages to the language they will understand. So I think if it is what you are talking about for the rural community, this is what I think we should do. And like she also said, the materials will also include what Dr. Kereludu was saying, about the food-based dietary guidelines that are, made localized in such a way that whether pictorial or whatever, so that the rural people can use them. They are part of the instructional materials that can be used to teach in the rural communities.
Thank you very much, Doc, Prof, for that. We'll come back for your final words. But as we're around now, let's take a final note from Dr. Akeredolu with a question. It's going to be your final note, but it's going to be in a question. The question I have here for you is, what local food items have the potential to help alleviate the incidence of malnourishment among the population?
Okay.
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. The local foods that have potential to help alleviate the incidence of malnutrition among the population. We are rich in foods now. We have so many foods. If you are being particular about protein, then if we start with the animal protein, we have beef, we have chicken, we have milk, we have eggs, we have fish. We grow all these things. We have crayfish, we have snails, we have edible insects, we have larvae. Then we have so many. But if you are talking about the plant ones too, we have legumes, we have seeds, legumes like soya beans, like beans and Benny seed. I don't need to begin to talk about all the things that Prof has already said, but she mentioned something that some of these our local foods, if we mix legumes and cereals, for instance, we can get good combination of the amino acids are complete. Also things like maize and beans as well, if they are combined, it used to be a very wonderful food. And we have nuts as well, our regular ground nuts. Then not just having those foods, people also need to get the products, things you can produce from such things, because we need variety. For variety is the spice of life. That's all I can say now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akeredolu. Your notes, it's going to last in our memories because you have helped us to remember those foods that we have that can actually help us. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Dr. Yedukun, we want to take your final take on this, but it's going to come in as a question also. So you round up with it for this session. The question is, what role can managed health services play in the quest to tackle protein deficiency in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you.
Hello,
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay, so
yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so good. The role that managed health services, managed care, basically can play in helping to combat protein deficiency in Nigeria is one, by bringing more people into the healthcare, into the net of healthcare services. Right now, we have far too many people in Nigeria who look at health professionals from afar. They know that what you know can help them, but they are very, very afraid of the financial consequences of stepping into that institution where the health professionals are, no matter the level of those health professionals. So the more people we have who have access to healthcare, who have health insurance, one way or the other. And this is where governmental efforts are very important. I'm aware that, for instance, the Lagos State government is ramping up and preparing for full-scale implementation of their Health Insurance Act, which was passed in 2015. They are ramping up to implement that starting January, or increase the implementation because there are already some people covered under it. If we have this kind of things replicated nationwide, where every Nigerian has access to healthcare, has access to health insurance, knows that if I see whatever kind of health professional, whether it's a nutritionist, a physician, whatever, whoever I see, I don't have to worry about the money I have to pay. Then we'll have them have access to quality information. And also for places where something is already going wrong, somebody can quickly diagnose and prescribe remedies. I mean, the solution to malnutrition is to get the right nutrition. And as long as you know what the proper thing is and you can do it, then you'll be fine. So I think that is a critical area where managed care comes in, which is access, because a lot of times you find out that health professionals are like people preaching and everybody is outside the church.
Hello?
Yes,
hello, Dr. Bimbo.
Yes, I'm with you, Anwuli. So I think that for me summarizes it. The critical aspect that managed health will play is providing access. Once people have access to the healthcare system, of course, that also presupposes that the healthcare system will rise up to the challenge of providing them with the accurate information and accurate diagnosis where you have things have gone wrong in terms of malnutrition. But it's absolutely critical for people to have access.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yedukun, for joining us on this session of our webinar series. Thank you very much. Prof, please, we'd like to have your final notes as we round up today's session.
Well, thank you very much, Anwuli. The essence of this webinar is, to find out how to bridge the knowledge gap. And I want to commend your organization for what you are doing. But I think everybody has a role to play in bridging this knowledge gap. And this knowledge gap is not restricted to maybe just those in the rural communities. Everybody, even the political class or the politicians, the policymakers, even those of us that are in the research area, then the general populace, there is I can say that everybody needs knowledge as to what we are supposed to do or what is supposed to be done. So I think we should try as much as possible to continue with this type of exercise to make sure that those who are supposed to be reached are reached. Because particularly, let me talk about the policymakers, because you know that it's not as if Nigerians don't know what to do. It's not as if we don't even know what we are supposed to do. Different and to solve the nutrition problem is multi-sectoral, and every sector has something to do. But I keep noting that one of the major problems is implementation of the things we have planned to do. Every sector has mapped out action, things they need to do in order to make sure that protein malnutrition or protein deficiency or malnutrition in general is solved in this country. But the issue is that it's due to the lack of understanding of the need for what we are into. That is why people are not investing. So I think a lot of advocacy needs also to be carried out, so that the plans we have, there are plans everywhere, just like you have your plan to make sure people know about these things. But when it comes to actual implementation, doing the things we need to do to checkmate the problem, you don't have the funds to do them. I think it's a serious problem. So in as much as we are trying to bridge the gap, we will also try to make sure that those who are supposed to make it possible for us to do the things we are supposed to do, because without money, without investing, without the finance, we can't do much. We just end up talking and talking and talking. But if we can only implement all the laid down plans, all the strategies we have mapped out, like I said, get extension workers, you need to take them to the community. They need transport. They need to move into the community. They need a good working environment and the incentive to go there. So you can only talk with mouth, but if they are given the empowerment, then they will do what they are supposed to do. So there is a lot to be done, not just for those who control resources, those who make the policies. There is just a lot to do. So for me, I think this is a good beginning or a good plan. What you are doing is very good, and I hope you will continue, even though it's specific to protein, but you will continue. And also when you are now popularizing the soya bean, make sure that it is done in such a way that the products are in the market and affordable to people, because it is only when it's affordable that they can use them. If not, they will not. So these are just my own concluding statements on what I have to say. And we should not also neglect what we already have. In as much as we have, well, soya bean we also have other things. We should also try to promote all of them at the same time, because we cannot just be, if we concentrate on soya bean too, then we are talking about monotony. But good nutrition has to do with diversification, dietary diversity. So while we are promoting one, we must not forget the others. We take all together so that there will be diversity. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you very much, Prof, for your closing remark. Thank you to all our panelists that made it here today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for our audience. This webinar is being recorded. You can find the clips on our website, and you can also find more information about the Protein Challenge on our Instagram page at #Protein Challenge. Today has been very eventful, very impactful and insightful. I have a few take home from this session. Now I'm able to know that I'll be able to measure my protein intake per day by calculating my weight, by using my weight and the 0.8 kg per kilogram to weigh that. Also, we also have learned that we can have protein complementation by adding 2 or more plant protein, plant-based protein to get more good quality protein. Thank you very much for everyone that was here today. Those of you that were not able to take your questions, we'll answer your questions at our website and we'll post them when they are answered. We want to say thank you to the management of the Media Craft Associates for this wonderful time. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, Amuli.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. All right, bye.
Bye.